Welcome to SEF Backstage. It's a podcast dedicated to bring you closer to the phenomenal speakers and change makers who are speaking at Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival. I'm Simona, the account manager at Urbi, a geospatial intelligence platform based out of UAE, and I'm thrilled for the conversation with Ahmed Al-Ali, who is the co-founder of Deep Opinion AI. Ahmed, it's incredible to be having a conversation with you. AI has already got me very curious, so please tell the listeners what is it exactly that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Simona, for having me here. Absolute pleasure. And I would like to first start by mentioning how I am amazed by SEF and the event here. It's really phenomenal. And it's one of the uniquely positioned places to have entrepreneurs at heart. And I've really enjoyed it. So a quick background about myself. I've been working with enterprise, different roles and organizations for the last 15 years. Started working with Emirates Airlines, started as a flight simulator engineer, so I can't claim that I was doing virtual reality when it wasn't cool yet. From there, I've moved through the organization and ended up leading the market and customer intelligence lab within the digital transformation team. Worked also with the Prime Minister's office and did my PhD at the University of Cambridge in natural language processing, a field of AI. And really, through all of those experiences, I learned few things about myself. I learned that I like to create impact. I like to do it through technology. So I'm what you would call a techno-optimist. I believe that technology can create a positive impact for humanity, and that just held me captive. Fell in love with the technology, especially with AI, the way that it can basically augment human beings and humanity to achieve more and result in better prosperity and economic growth. So that, and through the exposure that I've seen at the University of Cambridge, meeting exciting people, I've learned what entrepreneurship can do in the sense of capturing the potential of technology and translating it to a positive impact. And this is where I met my co-founders, Stefan and Steve, and started Deep Opinion. And at Deep Opinion, we are helping organizations to automate their repetitive process and help them to be more productive and achieve higher value through their operations.
So I really like the value proposition. And so as I was reading the December issue of Entrepreneur magazine, I saw a picture of you presenting Deep Opinion AI to Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. Must have been quite a pleasant moment to remember for yourselves and a big achievement. But what was the journey like from the concept, meeting your co-founders, to actually onboarding both corporate and government clients and knowing that this is the right product market fit, this is the right business we're building?
Absolutely, and I can tell you a secret. It's no secret anymore that what we started with is absolutely different in terms of look and feel. However, the mission and vision was always the same. So, and I believe actually most fellow founders would share this sentiment that you start with an idea, start with a direction, you interact with the market. And I like this saying of no plan can withstand the first contact with the enemy. In this case, we can convert it to the customer because you have a first-hand experience of what really the customer needs and then adjust course accordingly. So in terms of the journey, I've really been fascinated, also by the UAE itself. I think, the UAE is a startup on a global scale where we've managed to move from basic life necessities that were really hard to have with, inspiring leaders and resources that they can leverage to really transition the UAE to one of the leading economies globally. I mean, I've seen a report this morning actually that says that Dubai, for example, is one of the top 3 globally growing cities as an economy. So that was a lesson for me, and really wanted to take the entrepreneurial journey myself. Been fascinated by working at different organizations and learned a lot from them. And I believe that to contribute to that growing economy of the UAE, I have a lot to contribute from the private sector and specifically through entrepreneurship. So I was doing my PhD at the University of Cambridge, got exposed to different people, different fields, and I actually went there saying, you know, I would love to do my own startup. I know that I love AI. I know that it will have magnificent, or let's say ultra large scale positive impact. And from there I thought, okay, what can I do through that? And I remember listing 10 ideas, asking people. I thought, you know, let me try all of those 10 ideas while I'm doing my PhD. If I fail with all of them, you know what, at least I tried. Entrepreneurship is not for me. I'll go back and try to work through the career ladder. Deep opinion is idea number 3.
So what was idea number 1 and number 2? I just honestly love the element that you had a list of things to try.
Absolutely.
Because that's what a lot of things boil down to, is the gut and the desire to be like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'll get a few no's.
Absolutely, and you know there were different ideas. I can't remember exactly, but they were mostly around leveraging natural language processing. I'm always fascinated by how much data, unstructured data, we have on the internet, and leveraging that data to create insights was really an underexplored segment of the technology. And now with the growth of AI and more with generative AI, we see the impact there. So, you know, from there, I've actually met through an introduction. Like I was telling this story to a colleague who was a mentor at the Cambridge Accelerator Program for Science and Technology, walked him through the 10 ideas, and then a couple of weeks later, he called me saying, remember idea number 3? I've actually met a couple of guys entering the program with a similar idea, and they want to convert it to a business. I told them about you, and they would love to meet you. And then I've met my co-founders through that program, and since then we've been working really well together. So that was the beginning of Deep Opinion.
That's amazing, and I don't want to use the word lucky, but the luck always plays a part in everything. Coincidence to have found strong people who are looking for the same. So productivity, right? That's what you are enhancing. The ultimate dream is to do more in less time. What are your personal productivity hacks, mantras, thoughts, philosophies? How do you try to do more with less time?
Fascinating question, actually. And through my career, it meant different things. Working at an enterprise, let's say, for example, with an airline of tens of thousands of employees working at scale, productivity means something totally different than, 10, 20, 30 people startup. So in a startup specifically, this is where I focus. Productivity really means cutting things out. It's not necessarily automating what you do today, because in a startup, you don't really do the same thing again and again and again. In principle, you are aiming at the same direction, but you're still exploring. You're finding a repeatable and scalable business model. And until you find that, you need to be very efficient in saying no and focusing on what matters. And it's really hard. Customers, partners, co-founders, employees, news, they will all pull you in different directions. You would think that you can do many things at the same time, too many wagons to jump on, but actually being more productive is first saying no, cutting all the noise out, focusing on what matters, and actually doing this by reverse engineering the outcomes and the future you want to make happen, and coming back to today and saying, all right, this is what I need to go there, and double down on it. It might not be the right thing. You might hit dead ends. Like as an entrepreneur, You would experience few empty miles by doing things and then realizing it wouldn't have the impact you want. But then, because you're only focusing on what matters, you can change course, pivot, enhance, call it whatever you want, but it's then easier to revert back to a track that can help you to focus again and try the next thing. And if you keep with that creative persistence, a nice statement that I've heard through SEF over the last couple of days, will get you to achieve your goals in a shorter amount of time.
I really like this. So then we look at Deep Opinion AI. You support companies, you provide companies a solution that automates complex processes through the use of AI. And you're working with many corporates as well as government organizations. So few names to mention are the DEVA, Siemens. Tell us more about the solution you provide to them.
Absolutely. I'll first zoom in and give you a quick overview about enterprise. We all know this, but one thing that fascinated me about corporates or enterprise by looking outside in is, if you think about it, the only way that large organizations can communicate with the external world, being customers, partners, suppliers, is through unstructured data. This can be emails, customer support tickets, documents, attachments, files, and so on. And guess what? It's really hard to ingest and work with that data as an enterprise, and hence you see functions built somewhat artificially just to help the organization absorb that data. Let's say you receive a customer support emails. You don't want to read those emails, you want to help your customers, but you need a team that's dedicated to reading and routing those emails. Same thing with vendors. You don't want to read every single contract and review every single invoice you receive. You want to get your books in order. And hence, with AI, you can, which wasn't possible before with conventional technology, you can leverage AI to process that unstructured data, regardless of how varying and challenging it is, to optimize those repetitive tasks. Because guess what? Employees do not enjoy doing repetitive tasks. They are actually looking for fulfilling work. However, in some cases, they would do whatever need to get the job done. So that's from an overview perspective. Now, AI can help with this a lot. And we've been successful with few of our customers to help them automate a variety of processes, whether it is customer onboarding to make take a bank for an example. You need to still go to a bank with a bunch of documents, your passport, ID, bill of address, and so on, and someone on the other side needs to type it in still in 2024. Someone needs to do a manual data entry, and that's just unacceptable in terms of where the technology is today, and we would like to solve this for organizations. And this is where we've helped customers digitize their, or even automate, make their customer onboarding touchless, make their customer support automated, because guess what? Your customers do not want to talk to your customer support. Actually, in every single survey, it says that customers prefer a touchless and instant process, and the only way to do this is with AI. Same thing for reviewing documents in terms of the procure-to-pay process. This is where we help organizations. Let's take a manufacturing company, for example. For every single material they receive a bunch of documents that says, you purchased this from us, and this is what we have delivered to you, and someone would need to compare it with their internal records. So AI actually can receive this document, review it, check that you actually bought this item, and then book it off in your ERP system, and hence automate that process and keep track of your inventory. And this actually is just the beginning. One fundamental change that I would like to focus on is the entrance of generative AI. And if you ask me what is special about generative AI, The technology, by the way, was there for the last 7 years, I think, around. I remember playing with GPT, like the first version, creating an episode of Simpsons. When it came out first, it was an open source library by OpenAI back in 2017, 18, kind of around that time. So the technology is not new, but with the release of ChatGPT, it happened to become the fastest growing technology in human history. They've managed to reach more than 100 million users in less than 2 months, which is phenomenal, faster than any other technology out there. And why did that happen? And that's the important question. Well, there are 2 elements to it. And you can even draw parallels from your personal life. Many of the people I know have never interacted with an AI model, at least not intentionally, before ChatGPT, because it was really hard to do it. You need to know how to code, and you need a specific product that is custom developed for very specific use case. And now with generative AI, you have access to that model and you can communicate to it with natural language. So it's really easier to go back and forth with that technology. So that's one element that lowered the bar to get access to that technology. The other factor that we've seen is the beauty of generative AI is not just the technology itself, but rather its ability to reason. So one thing that we didn't have with conventional AI models is its ability to reason. And by seeing those 2 things, it's really easy to work with generative AI. It is capable of reasoning and hence doing a better job at performing tasks. It means that there is massive impact to the enterprise to leverage such a technology. And hence, we will see many CEOs, actually we've already seen this, declaring that 2024 is actually the year of Gen AI, where they are looking back at their executive board, asking them to bring positive business impact use cases with generative AI. This will have massive implications on rethinking how the future of work look like, because now suddenly you can do way more with this technology than was possible before.
So let me ask you the question here. I think I've heard this said many times in different shapes. Artificial intelligence is not going to replace your job, but someone who is using it is. So you know a lot more about the topic, and kind of you've been playing with the technology for 7 years longer than I have. So then it comes to me and fellow entrepreneurs and kind of people who want to progress their career and agree that the world is moving in that direction. What should we train ourselves now not to fall behind?
All right, that's actually a great question. And perhaps let's split it into 2 components. One is how entrepreneurs can leverage generative AI, which we've successfully done so for Deep Opinion in different places. And the other question is, how do I stay relevant in the world of AI? And, it's not just about, and I've heard this many times, that, someone with AI will replace you. It's somewhat true, like there is truth to it. However, it's not as black and white as it sounds. It's a multifaceted challenge, and it's not only on the employee. Actually, it's not even only on organizations. It's one of the topics that we've heard being discussed really deeply at the World Economic Forum at Davos very recently. And what we've seen is, one, don't look at generative AI automating jobs. It is rather automating certain tasks within jobs, and there are detailed studies on that. The other thing is, think about generative AI and any technology that comes out. It stays augmenting people for way long before it's replacing. Because think about it. OpenAI and Google might be fast in releasing foundational large language models, organizations won't be as fast in adopting it. So let me take two counterexamples. So one example that we've seen, and it was published there publicly with IKEA, for example. They've seen that generative AI and AI more broadly can automate a big chunk of their customer service and customer support. And they've realized that they don't need as much people in their support team. So what they have done is, because those people have deep insights into the products and customer needs, they've managed to have a program to transition those people to be sales advisors that will sit with customers and tell them how best to basically design their home internally, interior design, products that they can leverage. And guess what was the reported results? More than $500 million increase in their revenue. So that's a smart move. There is another example where we've seen, personally as deep opinion, with insurance companies. As you can imagine, Simona, Gen Z are not excited about joining insurance companies and processing claims today. Everyone wants to be an influencer on YouTube. So what we've seen actually in certain segments within insurance, to process a claim, you require specific domain expertise. So it's really hard to maintain the workforce. So what ended up happening is those veterans in insurance having to spend evenings and weekends to maintain or operate that process. And with us, partnering with those insurance companies, they've managed to alleviate some of that workload, have it automated, and actually our AI models calling on the domain expert where there is an edge case that needs special expertise. This way, employees can focus on more meaningful work, as well as the work can happen more efficiently. Because, like if we draw on another parallel, if you delay using generative AI, your competitors might not.
So I'm sold. Great. How do I go about starting to implement this? Because from what I'm hearing, there are several elements that need to be addressed. One is identifying the use case, what you're going to optimize it, then designing the solution, then bringing people on board. As you're speaking and as I'm listening to everything, is one of the elements in bringing stakeholders on board to support the implementation of the solution is almost like a fear element that what if something goes wrong?
Absolutely, and that's a fair question. And it's even a legitimate question, not just for employees themselves, but if you look at across the hierarchy, organizations are still trying to understand how should they think about AI, generative AI, or even how to buy such a technology, where to place it, how to implement it, and so on. It all starts with a fundamental point, which is awareness. It's really important to spend the time to be aware of what is AI, what is generative AI, what does it mean for me on a personal level, and what does it mean for my organization and my current role. If you look at the technology, there are many solutions off the shelf that you can leverage to help with very specific tasks. I call this the builder experience and the user experience. Mm-hmm. There are certain tools like, let's say, I'm in the marketing department, and I can leverage something like Runway ML to generate videos for marketing campaigns. So that will help me personally. But there are underlying technologies that I might want to build on top of to automate the process. And this is, for example, where deep opinion comes in. So I would always say, let's start with awareness. Let's understand where we are going as an organization and think about it differently. The first thing is, let's rethink our products, services, and value proposition. Does it stay the same or does it change? with generative AI. And this is really important to take a step back and think about it. So that's one big place where we've seen.
Can we stop here for a second? So you're saying that company owners, C-suite, the founders themselves should revisit their product and question, is it still going to be sticking around, or are they likely to be replaced if they don't adapt?
Correct. It might not be purely replaced, but there are certain, let's say, commodities that might not be straight impacted by AI. But definitely, if we look at AI, it might augment your products. It might actually help you to rethink. Like even going to that point, we might see an interesting trend. One is you might be even able to do things that weren't possible before because the technology wasn't there before. So it's opening for you, unlocking to you a new value that is trapped on how you operate today. The other thing is it will help you to operate more efficiently. And then 3, it might augment what you do by helping you to basically complement your products, give a better customer experience to your customers, and improve in that direction. So it's important to know how AI will help you with those different segments, and then think strategically about how you do it. And as you've said, Simona, the challenge is not really in the technology itself. While there are technological challenges in terms of safety, responsibility, data privacy, and there are plenty of those. However, the challenge that we face today is mainly an organizational challenge. How can we leverage this technology? How do we manage change? How do we transition to that direction smoothly? And this is something that at least C-suite cannot outsource, and they will need to figure out for themselves on how to do it in the favor of staying relevant moving ahead.
Do you have any tips for the C-suite that you would like to share? Because it sounds like you've been thinking about this space for a long time.
Absolutely. So some of the things that we've seen here is being aware of what's happening around you. So look at the horizon a little bit and see what's the trajectory of that technology and how it is reshaping your industry, not specifically your company, but rather your industry, because we're going to see a lot of changes on how things happen. The other area is try to also rethink your operations, because where you had massive teams that are maintaining or operating a very repetitive, dense process might not be needed anymore. And you can do just as some of the examples we've mentioned, deploy those resources in different areas to have a different customer experience. So be nimble, be lean in your operations, because many of the manually operated processes won't make sense moving in the future. And we need to rethink smartly how we have a customer-centric approach and have a people-first view of employees, transition them smartly into areas that they can be augmented by AI and have a bigger impact.
So I want to loop back to the thing that you mentioned earlier about artificial intelligence is going to be used. That's a given, and it's up to us how we're going to use it. So as everything it has, the coin has two sides, the good and the bad. So let's start looking at the good side.
Right.
What do you see the benefits that AI is going to bring?
Absolutely. Fascinating question. I love this. I am what we would call a techno-optimist. I really believe that technology will have a positive impact on humanity, and that's part of my journey and will always be. Let's look at the economic side of things. Research shows that there are two interesting paradigms that are appearing. So one is that AI, and more specifically generative AI, is a general purpose technology, which basically means that it has more in similarity with things like electricity, the internet, steam engine, microchips than any other technology, which means that it's a foundational technology that allows innovation to be built on top of it and accordingly create more positive impact, abundance of resources, and if you map that with plummeting cost of computation, plummeting cost of energy, hopefully, then we are looking at a more prosperous future. One estimate was by McKinsey that the contribution of generative AI will be more than $4 trillion per annum to the global GDP. If you think about that scale, it's more than the GDP of the UK, a developed country, which is fascinating. So, and we all know with the increase of economic growth, there is always increase of jobs. Now, will that job be with the same organization, or would we start to see the first 1 person or 10 people, billion organizations appearing in the next decade? Because, now you can augment yourself and be able to create innovative ideas and products without really needing crazy resources to make it happen.
I need to spend a little bit more time looking into that because that space really interests me personally. So the good side sounds very optimistic, but the bad side is also there. It just depends if we tap into it. What are your maybe like concerns of where it could go wrong if mismanaged?
Thank you for really saying the word mismanaged, because there are two schools of thought on the risk or the dark side of AI. Some of it is, singularity, AI taking over humanity and eradicating us, which is not scientifically founded thought, or let's say at least flawed in certain senses. The other direction is the impact of people with this technology on people. And just to put this out there, any kind of high-impact technology being in the wrong hand can create disastrous output. This is not exclusive to AI. This can be the same to nuclear energy, biotechnology, and few other things. However, going back to AI, there are a few things that we need to look into really on a global scale. So, and mainly it's around how we leverage this technology and how we put policy around it. For example, we've heard about the US discussing, even on the level of the Congress, to really ban access to open AI models to the rest of the world because it might be used negatively. However, if you think about it, having open research is a fundamental step for AI to reach where it is today in the first place. So not having the right policy around it to keep it open source, open research, open science to engage the global economy. And we've seen a phenomenal model here in the UAE. The generative AI or generative models started perhaps in the West. We've seen some coming out of Europe, China, as well as the UAE. And I'm really pleased to see how the UAE is placed on the global open source map for generative AI with models like Falcon and Jace. So having an open, forward-looking policy to manage such a technology is really important to do so. The other thing is for tech companies to take an inclusive view of the technology, making it really closed source and focusing on a commercial first and commercial only in some sense view of the technology might even limit the progress of the field and might limited to certain agents or players in the market, and might hinder the growth of the technology and might make it actually limited to certain people, which always adds to that risk.
So building on what we were just saying is, even when we look at technologies that are existing right now, biases is a big problem.
Correct.
Do you see that being addressed, or do you actually see that likely being amplified? Because I personally think that the next technological growth is going to be really fast, and it's still building on the foundation where we are right now.
Absolutely. So we've seen a fascinating growth of the technology, and I genuinely believe that we are in day one. So whatever we have seen until today is just the beginning, and I believe that what's coming will be even more fascinating. So let's be ready for such a fabulous ride in our lifetimes as we enjoy that journey. In terms of how do you manage this globally, I think the first step is having an open dialogue on a global level. And if we think about, again, drawing on examples of the UAE, we always seen the ability to draw on soft power. So the UAE was the first country in the world to hire or to appoint a minister for artificial intelligence that brings representation of such an impactful technology to the highest levels of the UAE, as well as include the UAE in that global dialogue of that impact. We've seen great conversations on that level in Davos, again, with global leaders on how we can leverage that technology, how can we make it open, how can we make it deliver positive impact to humanity, how we can ensure that it doesn't fall in the wrong hands with absolute control. And with those things, we are actually in a better place to have a more prosperous view of the future of AI.
Thank you for this conversation. As you said it, we're in day one of a very exciting journey, and hopefully it is all going to be predominantly the ride that is going to lead to prosperity and the economic growth and the building of new industries as well. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.